Rica again, Mr. Doman. We're so happy to have you here at El ABC de los Padres one more time. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here.
We're going to talk today about something we didn't talk last time you were with us, and it's about the brain-injured child.
Yes.
Which is a topic you know so much about, and I think it's an area we need to tell mothers and parents about. So
Absolutely.
First of all, how did all this dental revolution start? And
well, it started right at the end of the Second World War when my father came back from the war and he began to work with his mentor and his great professor, Dr. Temple Fay. He was a brilliant neurosurgeon and neurologist, and he was 50 years ahead of his time, and he chose my father as his principal student. They began a private practice together, and then by 1955, that morphed into the Institutes for the Achievement of Human Potential.
Okay, and so back then, you started working with children with brain injury, right?
Well, actually, as explained in the book, What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child, we began with working with brain injured adults.
Okay.
And they actually lived at the institutes, and as a child growing up at the institutes, they were my friends, and so
Those were your friends?
I spent all my time with the brain injured adults because they liked to play with kids. I had the attention of adults. It was wonderful.
Okay. And then when you started, what things you started to find out? What were the results when you started working with them?
Well, in the first
it was your father, right, that started working with them?
Of course, absolutely. So from 1945 to 1952, the initial staff at the institutes used the conventional methods of physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy with brain injured people. And they did this with all their hearts and all their mights. But after 7 years, the results were not significant.
No results.
So they did a study, which is explained in the book, and the results were simply not acceptable. So they stopped what they were doing, and they said, we have to go on a new course, because what we've been doing is treating the symptoms of the brain injury, and because the brain runs everything, every part of our body is run by our brain. So if it's injured, we can have problems with our eyes, with our mouths, with our ears, with our arms, with our legs, in terms of our internal organs. Everything is run by the brain. So they realized we have to stop what we're doing and now treat the brain itself. So together with Dr. Fay, they began to pioneer new methods where the brain itself was being treated.
And that was the year?
That was 1953. And for the next 7 years, they used the new methods. Then they did another study. Again, it's in the book.
And it's important to talk a little bit. This is the book. Maybe we can show it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have it in Costa Rica, and it's very important. We're going to talk about this a little bit later.
The first scientific study ever in the history of brain injured children was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association in 1960. And it was the results of that first 7 years of program using the new methods.
Okay.
And
at the institutes.
yeah, and so that is, we've printed that article in here, but it was the first article ever reporting significant results that brain injured children received.
When you talk about significant results, what kind of results you were having that you were not having before?
Well, children who were paralyzed who began to crawl,
Okay.
and then creep on their hands and knees, and then begin to walk, and then begin to run.
Okay, that's important. And in the past, they were not doing that. Children were paralyzed, and they stayed paralyzed.
Right, I mean, the results of the old methods that we did were things such as Sarah can hold her head up better, or Billy can roll over better. But is that going to change his life? The children needed to learn to walk and run in order to be well like other children of the same age.
So in 7 years, you got those results?
Yes, and that began the new program, which we've continued to develop to this day. So our program is always in evolution. We never stick with the same thing. Our physical, intellectual, social program is evolving as we learn better and better methods.
Okay, and what results are you having right now, nowadays?
Well, we are the only organization in the world that publishes our results twice a year in our journal called the In Report. And it reports on all the victories of all the children around the world on our intensive treatment program.
So there are children around the world doing the program. How do they do that?
Well, we have 500 children on our intensive treatment program. And the results are also in our website, www.iahp.org.
That is coming out on the TV. You can see it in there.
Okay, great. And of course, there are hundreds of pages of information in Spanish, including all of our results in terms of children who are paralyzed and now walk and run, children who were considered mentally retarded, which we consider an offensive term, which should never be used for brain injured children. And these children learn to understand and read, often above age level, and then to write and to learn how to talk.
I want to talk a little more about that. Children who learn to write and read above that age level, the children that are with cerebral palsy or with brain injuries do that?
Well, cerebral palsy is another big group of children, and of course these children are brain injured. And in the 1960s, the early 1960s, my father began to teach their parents to teach them to read. And the reason was he knew that these children were very intelligent, but they couldn't prove that they were intelligent. Well, he figured if he could teach them to read, then it would be proof of how intelligent they are. So he began to do that, and by 1963, there were hundreds of severely brain-injured 3-year-olds, in some cases who could read better than 9-year-olds, which was a spectacular result.
Of course.
And as a result, my father wrote the book, How to Teach Your Baby to Read, which began the gentle revolution and the whole series of books that goes along with that.
En Laboratorios Echandi tenemos el mejor equipo técnico que nos garantiza la exactitud de los resultados de sus exámenes, acompañado de un destacado grupo de profesionales que se actualizan constantemente para brindarle un mejor servicio. En agradecimiento a su preferencia, queremos ofrecerle varias alternativas para el uso de nuestros servicios, en beneficio de usted y su familia.
Laboratorios Clínicos Echandi están en todo el área metropolitana. Los invitamos a visitarnos.
Natural Makeover y Spa es una clínica de belleza especializada con tecnología de punta, lo último en técnicas manuales y micropigmentación. Nuestro objetivo es brindarle una opción de tratamientos estéticos y relajantes. Las Body Magic 2-Step System reúnen en un solo sistema enormes ventajas para tu cuerpo, remodelan la figura y reducen hasta 2 tallas de cintura. Le invitamos a que conozca nuestros servicios. Natural Makeover, belleza y salud en armonía.
Cuánto te esperé y ahora estás aquí, expresando entre sonrisas este amor.
Hay un amor tan grande que dura toda la vida. Por eso todos los días está hasta en cada cucharadita. Colado Sagú, calidad, nutrición y amor.
¿Ya adquirió usted la pista de gateo para su bebé? Se la recomiendo 100%. Es especial para estimular el área física de los bebés desde que están recién nacidos y hasta el año y medio, ya que tiene múltiples usos. Llámenos o escríbanos para que aparte la suya y empiece a estimular a su bebé en el área física.
A los ticos no nos puede faltar empezar el día con un cafecito y gallo pinto para desayunar. No nos pueden faltar los paseos de un día a la playa o a las posas con los amigos, ni el antojito de un copo para terminar. Que no falten nuestros ritmos, música y canciones para bailar. No nos pueden faltar nuestras costumbres, nuestro folclor, nuestra gente, pura vida, nuestro sabor. Como a los ticos, solo los ticos. Y como las sodas, solo Pozuelo, que es mucha galleta.
el señor Douglas Doman, les quiero recomendar el método de bebé políglota. Es el mejor método de estimulación temprana en idiomas, porque sus hijos pueden aprender 7 idiomas a la vez: español, inglés, francés, alemán, mandarín, portugués e italiano. Muchas son las mamás que nos manifiestan que sus hijos están aprendiendo idiomas antes de los 7 años. Por eso, el método de bebé políglota es el método que usted debe adquirir ya.
What is brain injury?
Brain injury occurs when brain cells die. Brain injury occurs when brain cells die. The question is, are enough brain cells killed to stop a child from doing the things that he wants to do in life? Does it show? And of course, for our children, that does show, and that's why parents are desperate to be able to do something to develop these children to much higher levels.
But it's interesting because I've heard you say before that the brain injury is named in different ways. There are different names given to a brain injury. So
Yes.
maybe mothers get confused. What are the
Absolutely.
names?
This is a huge problem. And if this problem was solved, it would solve a huge amount of the problems that brain injured children have. And the problem is all the names: cerebral palsy, mental retardation, autistic, Down syndrome, learning disabled, attention deficit disorder, epilepsy, learning disabled. There's names after names after names. And these are all, they're not diseases, not one of them. They're all symptoms of brain injury. And the problem with conventional therapy is that it attempts to treat the symptoms, which we already did and failed to do. And so the children, it's believed that they cannot be made well because they're not getting well with the conventional methods. So it's a tragic situation. And parents think, oh, my child is not brain injured, my child has cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy doesn't exist. It is a symptom of brain injury, and these children, like the other children, have great potential to improve and to graduate to wellness.
Okay, so what if a mother is watching us and she has a child who has been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder or with a learning disability, or she says, my child is having a hard time learning to read. So that's a brain injury, in fact, more than that has been named with a different name?
Yes, and the gradient of brain injury goes from coma, which is the most profound form of brain injury, all the way up to children who may be struggling in school. They're called stupid. They are not stupid. They have a minor neurological problem that is stopping them from being able to read or do math or what they need to do in school at age level.
And the worst, I think, a big thing about this is that we believe that a child with a brain injury or a child that is autistic or a child that whatever name it has, will be like that forever. Okay, he won't become better or he won't be well. What do you think about this?
It's a big lie.
It's a big lie.
It's the lie that brain injured children cannot improve. It's predestined. They're going to be that way their entire lives. Our graduates who have gone off to school, to high school, to university, to graduate school, they prove that the children can become well, and all different kinds of brain injured children, all those labels, they all have the potential to get well.
I would like you to share one of those stories of victories with the mothers, and so that they get, I know you have hundreds of stories and it's in the report, but I think I want mothers that are watching the show to get motivated and say, okay, this happened to that child, I want my child to be well too. And the thing is that can happen. So is there any specific one you would like to share with us?
Well, I mean, there's so many children we love, there's so many wonderful parents, and there's so many beautiful stories. But a typical story, an Italian family brought their Down syndrome child to us when he was 1. And by the way, starting early is really important. The sooner that we can begin, the better it is.
I've heard that there's a mother that came to you when she was pregnant, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's soon enough?
Yeah, well,
That's a better?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That would be ideal.
Okay.
So this wonderful Italian family worked very hard, and by the time their Down syndrome child was 5, he was above average in terms of his reading and math and general knowledge. He was above average in terms of his physical abilities and socially. So parents said he is done, he's ready to go to kindergarten.
Wow. And where is he now?
Well, he went to kindergarten, and he went to elementary school, and then he went to high school, and then he went to university, and then he went to graduate school. He got his master's degree in economics, and today he works for a company, and he works out with his buddies, rowing. That's the sport that he prefers. Wonderful young man. His parents have written a book in Italian about his story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, beautiful. Okay, you've said before, I've heard you say, brain grows by use. What do you mean about that?
Well, these are the 5 most important words in the treatment of brain injured children. The brain grows by use. And that is why it's possible for a brain injured child to get well. Now, our program is pretty much designed that from the time he gets up in the morning until the time he goes to bed, we are arranging for him to use different parts of his brain in terms of his physical development, his intellectual development, his physiological development, and so that's what we do.
Okay. And you talk about percentages of the way the brain starts growing when the children use it. I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah. A study done about 20 years ago, they studied the circumference of the heads of brain injured children, and they're very small.
It's a characteristic.
Well, it's actually a symptom of brain injury. So 79% of all brain injured children have a head circumference smaller than the 50th percentile. 43% of brain injured children have a head circumference smaller than the 3rd percentile. So brain injured children have very small heads. In fact, there is a diagnosis for it called microcephalic, which means small head. Just put Latin words on it and make it into a diagnosis.
In fact, it's like a disease. It's called a disease, no? That child is microcephalic.
Exactly. So in a study that we did, we took children from age 2 to 10. They had been on our intensive treatment program for 2.5 years. We do anthropological measurements of the heads, which are much more accurate than medical measurements. And at the end of the study of 2.5 years, 51% of the brain injured children, the majority, had a head growth of 256% faster than average children the same age, which means that their heads grew 2.5 times faster than average children in that 2-year period. And that shows that brain injured children's heads, their brains can grow, their heads can grow, and of course, as the brain grows by use, we see them having better function in terms of mobility, beginning to walk or talk, or read or write or hop or skip and jump.
En Laboratorio Sechandy tenemos el mejor equipo técnico que nos garantiza la exactitud de los resultados de sus exámenes, acompañado de un destacado grupo de profesionales que se actualizan constantemente para brindarle un mejor servicio. En agradecimiento a su preferencia, queremos ofrecerle varias alternativas para el uso de nuestros servicios, en beneficio de usted y su familia.
Laboratorios Clínicos de Chandy están en todo el área metropolitana. Los invitamos a visitarnos.
Natural Makeover y Spa es una clínica de belleza especializada con tecnología de punta, lo último en técnicas manuales y micropigmentación. Nuestro objetivo es brindarle una opción de tratamientos estéticos y relajantes. Las Body Magic 2-Step System reúnen en un solo sistema enormes ventajas para tu cuerpo, remodelan la figura y reducen hasta 2 tallas de cintura. Le invitamos a que conozca nuestros servicios. Natural Makeover, belleza y salud en armonía.
Cuánto te esperé y ahora estás aquí. rezando entre sonrisas este amor.
Hay un amor tan grande que dura toda la vida. Por eso todos los días está hasta en cada cucharadita. Colado Sagú. Calidad, nutrición y amor.
¿Ya adquirió usted la pista de gateo para su bebé? Se la recomiendo 100%. Es especial para estimular el área física de los bebés desde que están recién nacidos y hasta el año y medio, ya que tiene múltiples usos. Llámenos o escríbanos para que aparte la suya y empiece a estimular a su bebé en el área física.
¿Te enteraste del nuevo corte de pelo de Ana por una foto posteada? ¿Recordaste viejos tiempos chateando con ese amigo que no ves hace años? Fuiste parte del cumple de Diego gracias a un video compartido.
Qué bueno poder estar siempre conectados, pero no hay nada como encontrarnos y compartir juntos. ¿Y si nos vemos hoy?
Boquitas, la diversión se combina mejor cuando estamos juntos. Y son de Pozuelo, que es mucha galleta.
Cuando su bebé está listo para pasar de leche materna a alimentos sólidos, su bebé está listo para consumir agú. Porque agú es calidad, nutrición y amor en cada cucharada. Ya sabe, su bebé quiere agú y usted está lista para darle lo mejor.
We're talking about all these, and mothers at home are saying, okay, very nice, I love to hear all this, what can I do for my child? And here's where I want you to give us the big news about you coming in May with a course. I think that's a big thing. Mothers, listen to this part, it's really important because you're coming with this course to teach the mothers of brain injured children, right?
Right. Well, we want to help all mothers of brain injured children. And so in terms of the things that we have available now, there are, of course, our books. And they're designed, starting with what to do about your brain injured child, that parents can start to work at home with that book. The whole Gentle Revolution series of books, which, by the way, all will be published at the end of this year by EDAF in Madrid. So EDAF has promised to send them to Costa Rica. Or else.
We cut them.
Yeah. So parents can use those books for their brain injured children to design a home program. Then there is the website that parents can use. They can sign up on our website for our free e-newsletter, where every month we will send them more information about intellectual, social, and physical growth and physiological growth of their children. That's free. And we also have a Facebook page now where parents can see other parents' comments who have been on the program and the results that they've had. So the next step after all that is the What to Do About Your Brain Injured Child course. This is an intensive 5-day course only for the parents of brain injured children. It is designed for them and them alone. And the purpose is to teach them about brain growth and development, how it's possible for their children to get well, how they can use our developmental profile to evaluate their children, and then how to create a physical program, an intellectual program, and a physiological program, and then how to organize the whole thing and put it together.
And very important, who are going to be the therapists of these children? I think that's super important. Who are going to be the therapists of the children?
Well, the Institute is not a therapy organization. We are a research and a teaching organization. So we find new ways to grow the brain, and then we teach those methods to parents. They go home and they do all the treatment.
The parents are going to be the therapists.
Yes, and
That's
remember,
important.
we've had 25,000 parents from more than 100 countries who have successfully done this program.
Okay, and that's what you're going to come to teach to Costa Rica, right?
Yeah, we have never done the course south of Aguascalientes, Mexico.
Okay, so it's a big thing.
So we're going to move the course to San Jose on May 28th, and we're going to invite all of our Latin American Spanish-speaking parents to take that course. So typically, parents will come from 10 different countries. We expect at least that amount in May, and they will come from all over Latin America.
Okay, perfect. Anything else you want to tell parents about the course?
Well, the course has more than 6 hours of question and answer periods.
Good.
So in all the breaks, the clinical and the medical staff is there for the purpose of answering all the parents' questions. And it's a matter of pride for us that by the end of the week, the parents have asked all the questions. Okay. And we've done our best to answer the ones that we know the answers to.
Okay, and by the end of the week, they go home and are ready to start the program with the child.
That's the purpose.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much for being here one more time. It was a pleasure to have you here. And to the mothers, you can write to the address that is there on the screen to ask for more information about this course that is coming in May. And it's a super good course, as you have heard, and you can ask for more information through the website and Facebook too.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's great pleasure.
Muchísimas gracias por habernos acompañado en una semana más del ABC de los Padres con una entrevista que estoy segura que les ha encantado. Nos vemos la próxima semana.